Welcome to Soltron. I've mostly finished my mods of the DX TeiOh Hyper Ressha. So I'm going to show off all the articulation mods, and then we'll talk about the next steps and a secret mode at the end. So here he is in his base TeiOh model. So if you know anything about this figure, he's basically just a brick with moving arms, which is pretty typical of Sentai. So I gave him a lot of articulation. Of course, I got his shoulders going, I got elbows, he's got knees, thighs, he's got neck articulation. So that's what he looks like when he's articulated, which is not very convincing. It sort of looks like he's falling over, but that's just because he's got this huge brick on his backpack, which makes up most of his body. Alright, and here he is with DX TeiOh. I just thought it'd be fun to scramble up his colors, so that's how he looks. So TeiOh is still much bigger, of course. I think to make this look convincing, I'm going to have to put some extensions in his thighs just to get his knees a little bit lower so they actually touch the ground. Because they do touch the ground, but only if his legs are basically straight. So now he looks much less awkward. So I think I am going to have to implement a system where where these basically slide down a little bit when he's in like an A stance, just so it looks like his legs are always touching the ground, or that the slide comes from here. So I'm going to have to think about that. That'll be like a next step in the future, but for now he does have, technically his legs can kick forward this far. So he can't really look like he's sitting, but he does have knee joints, so he can do this. So he can look like he's sort of walking, but again, the issue is his feet aren't really touching the ground, so it's not that convincing. And he does have like a little bit of outward motion, a little bit of rotation, so we can get him like in an off-center pose, looking to the side. Looks kind of decent. The other big articulation, of course, is in his neck. So he has double joint, Lego joint in here, so he can basically look in all directions. These back sections here get in the way because of this giant train section. So if I might actually make it so that this part can just come off, and then the back of his head doesn't have to be hitting things all the time. So that would be nice, but because of that, he does have like limited upward motion, but he can look to the side. That was the big thing, so that articulation is there. It looks very goofy with this huge section of train behind his skull, but that's how it is. And then he does have these ball joints here, which are kind of in an odd place for his shoulders, so his shoulders can move up now. So he can get like basically full upwards motion. Yeah, I think the big thing is just that his feet don't touch the ground. It makes him look very silly, but he can basically T-pose, and he's got these elbow joints now, so he can rotate his arms, put his hands on his hips, I guess, if he wanted to for some reason. And then he's got the default articulation, which was the detents in the arms that let these rotate all the way around. So there you go. He's definitely not going to be able to put his arms across his chest because he's just such a huge fat brick. That's just he's just not going to look very articulated, and that's okay. That's just kind of his thing. Is he I don't know. I never watched the show, so I don't know what his attack was, if he just like shoots out of these fingers or what. He does have like one little special feature, which I think is funny but kind of stupid, is I did modify his forearm, or his biceps, I guess, so now his arms can extend. So now he can do that. He can like kind of fire his arms. It's not very convincing. It just looks like he's trying to give someone a hug, but I guess he can rotate his fingers up, and then that can look like he's doing a like finger firing sequence. So yeah, I mean there's only so much you can do with this guy. I could have really taken a lot of things apart, but this was like my lowest priority, so it's fine for him to look kind of like junk. So to get him into his train mode, we're just going to sandwich everything, make everything nice and flat as possible. There's like a little bit of a gap here. I also have to make it in the future that his feet or his legs will click into place, but that's fine. So that's what he does now. And then we're just going to retract his arms all the way up into his biceps. This one's coming apart a little bit. And we're going to just take his, we're going to remove his head from the stand section and just kind of, oops, can't see any of that, and just retract his neck into this section here, and then we're just going to lay him down. And there he is. In his train mode, looks mostly the same as usual. It's a little bit, there's some gaps here and there, and the arms are a little bit different. I did also extend these spikes on the shoulders a little bit just to make them flow out a little bit more, but you can see the front of the train basically looks the same. There's not much going on except for this new joint right there, but he doesn't look much different than his default. And then there is like a little bit of gap here and there, but that's something I could probably clean up when I get to the final version, but that's how he looks currently. I just want to make sure these feet are all flush for the next part, is like close to this plastic as they can get. So yeah, he looks basically the same. So let's go ahead and get him into the station mode, which I haven't actually played with yet, so we'll see how that turns out. So we're just going to split him in half, same as usual. Open him up here. And then I also sort of disabled this button so it's not needed anymore. So you can actually just use these joints without activating the button, which is my preference. And then I just have to make sure his feet have the clearance, like these parts just clear into this section, which is a little bit difficult because it's very tight. All right. So there he is. He's basically laying on his face now, and then I did knock off his chest in that process. He's just very large and it's hard to manage. And we're just going to straighten out the rainbow Ressha arms. And there he is basically in his base mode. Everything's looking basically the same. I guess these added articulation at the shoulder here lets these move. I guess you could pretend that like these are cannons or something. They can kind of like flatten down a little bit and kind of close off the track if needed. So that's fun, but that's where the shoulder articulation came from. Yeah, so base mode basically works the same. It's got like new joints in it, so it's a little bit, or it's a lot more fiddly than before it had any joints, but you can see the tracks all basically line up. It makes a train station. It looks largely the same, not that interesting. Alright, so then we'll just turn him into the rainbow Ressha, which will be very easy because all we have to do is just raise him up on his feet. Okay, so now he's in this mode, and then we're just going to lower this chest piece. Alright, so we're about at chest level for this guy. So a couple of other things I like to do with this a little bit more. Alright, we'll have to like take these parts where the head normally goes, and I just like to lean these forward to get them out of the bigger head's way. And then we just turn them around. We can see we've got the hyper, is it hyper Ressha, I think? So we're just going to rotate that up in place, and it's got two ball joints there for his neck joints. And that's basically the position it's in. So this, these prongs like always get in the way, and they did that before I modified him. Like he would normally look kind of like this. And then these would like block his head articulation, which is annoying, so I like to just lean these forward and try to get them out of the way a little bit, and then he can actually turn his head without any issue. So we just pretend it's kind of like a necklace piece, I don't know. Yeah, it's mostly a hindrance than anything, but it does fairly get out of the way. Okay, and I guess before I armor him up, let's go over his articulation. So he also has like shoulder articulation, so he can move that shoulder out. It's a little bit droopy because it's a little bit heavy, but he can get both of his shoulders all the way out. And then he has these double joints on the elbows, so we can extend the arms a little bit, and then he can get basically 90 degrees on the elbows. And then that, because they're double ball jointed, that also gives him the ability to do like a bicep swivel, so he can rotate those around. He can, of course, he can rotate his shoulders 360, so that's not going to be an issue. I guess he can almost cross his arms in front of his chest, not really. I did give one of his hands just to try it out. I gave one of his hands a wrist swivel, so he can get that in different poses, and it's got a ball joint built in. Let's see, he's also, so moving down, he's also got these hip joints, so we can just disconnect his legs, and then he can, I have to also, to make this work, I also have to disconnect his base figure. I have to disconnect these thigh pieces from his knees. So it'll basically be like this, and these will just stay on the back of his thighs, basically. So it's the back of his thighs, and then these smaller thigh pieces just kind of hang out on the back and get out of the way. So now that those have been disconnected, now he can actually activate his leg spread, which he's got a lot. He could probably technically, he's very heavy, so it's not really going to work, but he could probably do like a high kick. So he can basically do the splits at this point, but I don't know why you'd ever want to do something like that. But he can mostly get that articulation going. And then, yeah, so everything in the lower body is a lot harder, but the articulation is there. He can do, these hips can also, I designed them so they can kick forward as well, so we can get like this much forward kick, and they have like some backward motion a little bit, so that's in place. And then the ball joints are pretty loose, so I'm not really happy with the joints that I use. I might have to replace them for bigger ones in the future. But those joints are there. He does have, technically, he has knee joints, so you can use these ratchet joints to open this up. And then I inserted a ball joint right here so that now he can bend his knee here. These legs aren't really attached right now. I'm going to have to make a way for those to attach. But basically, and that was one of the thighs. So basically he can bend his knees and kind of look like he's walking. It definitely breaks the sculpt, but you can kind of ratchet that back down. It kind of cleans it up. So let me put him in something that looks not terrible. Alright, this looks a little bit more natural, sort of. He just looks like he's falling over at this point. Maybe I don't need to dramatically do his legs so much. But the point is, he can now do an A stance, which is very important. So that looks a little bit more natural. And he can, we can get those arm pieces, and then we use that extension joint. And then these are just going to clip onto the side of his arms, and then you can kind of rotate them. And those become like the spear weapons that he has on the side of his arms. I don't think extending it really makes that much of a difference, but it's something to make it a little bit different. So there, now he's got those clipped on. He definitely Mostly looks like he's falling over. His poses are of course going to be best when he's just standing there. And then we can also get these shoulder joints and we can fold those down now so that they're a little bit more aligned with his foot maybe. That one folds pretty nicely. I don't know what's wrong with this one, but that basically, you get the idea. So now that kind of like cleans up his foot area a little bit. So I'm just going to straighten him out and get him dressed. All right, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece off because I'm just not liking how this is turning out. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to make this like more, to flatten out more because it just hides his face too much. And I think this looks better when it's just not even in the way. So there's that. He's got his giant skinny neck. Oh, and I guess I technically have to put this piece on the top of his head. The ball joints on his neck are pretty loose right now, so this is going to be a big ask for him to keep his head up, but there we go. So there he is with just his wire frame, looking still more dynamic than he can normally look, so that's still an improvement, I would say. Now I just have to put the TeiOh pieces on him, and I did this kind of in a weird way. I put, actually, there's some ball joints here, 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 and then on his shins as well. And then he just uses the typical locking mechanism for this. So you have to push it out from the back. This button doesn't work anymore. I had to do that for the articulation. So you just push these out, and then you're going to slide the train pieces on. So we'll just get TeiOh. And then like this pink section, it's now got a little ball socket there, so you just clip that on here. And then the front section is just going to use the sliding joint. And I lowered the sliding joint on the biceps as well because I felt like the trains were riding a little bit too high. So now the trains only go this far up the track, which I think is an improvement. And then let's disassemble this guy. We're going to disassemble the blue and green trains. So here's all green. I'm going to take the front section of green, and that's just going to come up the rail here. And then, actually, pretty sure green goes on this side. And then this, so he's still got two more segments because I put this ball joint here. So this other segment is now going to, with the ball socket, is just going to clip onto his shin. And then the other segment is going to clip onto his thigh. Which is fighting me a little bit. Okay, so there's like the green train all connected up and the pink. And then the red one, I also did a weird thing to this. I actually cut this red train right here. I don't know what I'm going to do with this back section yet, so this is just going to retract into this section of train. But then now I have like the locomotive section. That section just connects up here as normal. So I would like for this section to maybe like stack on top of here and make him a little bit more 3D. Alright, so here he is with all the TeiOh parts. Actually, he doesn't technically have this part anywhere. Connected to him, so I think it fills out his color a lot better. So I actually really like the way that looks. I am actually not really digging this really skinny neck anymore. So let's put that piece back on and give him the fat neck. Alright, this whole neck fell off. Or no. Oh no, his whole, yeah. His whole neck fell off because that train was too heavy. I actually prefer the way he looks without having this little train on top of his head anyway. Actually, now that I say that, I think he does look better with this on. So there's how he looks. I think that's pretty good, I think. So for this figure, I think that's kind of the best you can hope for. Of course, it's going to be a huge priority for me. I do have to get him some ankle articulation, because that will just help him in his posing and stability like so much to give him some ankle pivot. So that's the next thing to work on, is some ankle tilts. Alright, that's probably the best pose I can get him in right now until I fix up his ankles, but I also have one more thing that I'm going to do to him. Alright, so I've been experimenting with this cob LED lighting, which is pretty fun. So you can actually put these pieces together. You get like these plastic connectors, and it's really simple to just string a bunch of colors together. So I actually want to get all these LED lightings and just put them alongside his tracks, just kind of like light him up. So I already kind of did this. I worked on this a little bit on his arm. So if you look closely at his arm, you can see there's a bunch of holes alongside the track. So there's a bunch of perforation that just goes all around his arm. So I can just insert the lighting in there basically. So to do something like that, so this arm is basically kind of lit up. It could definitely be a little bit better. I'm still working on it, but that's basically how it's going to light up, so that the tracks will all be lit. So this part will be the yellow track. So this will be the yellow light, and then green, and then red, and then blue, and then pink on this side. So I think that'll be pretty awesome once he's all lit up. And then one more thing I didn't think about what he would look like is if he's in like base mode, but all his limbs are spread out, so all the tracks are going like different directions. So he can definitely do that. Now he looks even more just like a robot that's laying down. And then Red's tracks unfortunately get split in half here, so the train just kind of basically derails right there. That just falls off the track, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, he can spread out, but then yeah, I think it just defeats the look. It looks better when he's all in one piece, but the tracks can all technically go in different directions. Yeah, so it looks like that. Yeah, it's going to look really good when it's all lit up though, so I definitely have to cut holes all through his torso still and all down his legs, so it's going to be a huge process. Alright, and there is one last thing I thought of that was really crazy when I was just transforming him. So here is what he looks like from the front technically. But you can basically just flip him around, and I don't know why I didn't think about this before I even started customizing him. And now he's got like a giant black and gold body, and then we can just take his standard TeiOh head, and we just slot that in here on his neck, and bring that forward a little bit. And now he's got this giant Super TeiOh mode, which looks really awkward. Honestly, it doesn't look great, but it's just funny to me that he can basically do this, and since I gave him those elbow joints, he basically can get backwards elbows. I'd have to make it so his thumb would actually swap around and go to the front of his fist, which is not going to be that much work, since I'm probably going to make finger articulation anyway, so that's not going to be too hard to make the fists face the right way. But yeah, this is a thing, and you can basically do this even if you just have the generic version of the figure. His legs would just be together, and these arms would just go straight down, basically. But you can make this form, and I've never seen it before, of the Super TeiOh mode, which looks something like this. And he's still got most of his articulation, but again, his ankles suck, so that's probably as dynamic as he's going to get right now, but he looks crazy. Oh yeah, and here's a comparison. So this guy is a Titan scale figure. He is a little bit taller than Tidal Wave, actually, so yeah, that's how big he is. But yeah, I just thought it was a fun little extra mode that he can do, and I kind of like the coloring of it. I think it looks pretty cool, and it's very different than his standard mode. So just thought I would show that off as well. So let me know what you think. Next time you see this guy, he should be all lit up and finished, and all the messes should be tweaked. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.